Hello, everyone. A very good evening. My name is Vikas Gupta, and I welcome you all to yet another insightful virtual CPE meeting on global trends in the internal audit, a look ahead, which is hosted by the Internal Audit Standard Board, ICI. Hope you are all having a very great weekend. I'll just briefly summarize the today's virtual meet flow. The meeting will have 3 different sessions covering some important and interesting topics. Also, at the end of the session, we have a Q&A round where all your queries will be answered by our faculties. So firstly, for the opening remarks, I would like to welcome and thank you, sir, CA Bhishan Ramesh Chandra Shah ji, Chairman Ahmedabad branch of WIRC, for having this opportunity. Thank you, sir, and welcome to the session.
Thank you, Vikas ji, and respected chairperson of the committee, CACS Nanda sir, Vice Chairperson CA Gyanchand Mishra sir, distinguished faculty, and all the participants. Yes, we all are aware that Thomas Friedman written the book, World is Flat. And with these global changes and dynamics, we are now going to perform these internal audit tasks for all our clients through technology, and we need to understand technology in these times. And I am sure with performing internal audit in due course, with the help of technology, we will give value addition to our clients. And I'm glad that all the 3 faculties today will give us insight, their experience, and share the knowledge with all of us. For small and medium firms, it is indeed a need of an hour to learn where statutory audits on which we do rely are changing trends. And if we focus on internal audit, we will definitely come with the excellence. With these words, sir, I'm again thankful to the committee for organizing such a wonderful virtual meetings for all of us. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Bhishan, sir. Now, I would like to welcome the chairman of Internal Audit Standard Board Committee, CA Charanjot Singh Nanda, sir. He would present his welcome note and keynote address in front of us. But before that, I would like you to allow me to read his brief profile. So I don't think I need to read that, but I'll just share. Nanda sir is currently the Central Council member. He was a member Quality Review Board set up by the Government of India. He was also the member, the Central Council Institute of Chartered Accountant India from 2004 to 2016. He was also the chairman of Committee on Internal Audit of ICI and chairman of Committee for Members in the Industry of ICI. He was also the chairman of Women Members Empowerment Committee of ICI, vice chairman on Public Finance and Government Accounting, chairman of Professional Development Committee ICI, chairman of Committee for Cooperatives and NPO sectors, vice chairman for Research Committee. Sir, the list is getting very, very long. So I would like to share the dice with you for your valuable remarks.
Thanks a lot, Vikas, for your very exhaustive introduction. I was reoriented with certain chairmanship I held and I had really forgotten them. So the chairman of Ahmedabad branch, CA Bhishan R. Shah, my younger brother. The 2 very revered speakers of the day who are here, Mr. Paul Jacker and Mr. Millen. Arun Agarwal, who's representing the Internal Standard Board, and so many chartered accountants, attendees who have joined this program to go home more enlightened. Ladies and gentlemen, your board, the Internal Audit Standards Board, is totally upbeat to do programs every now and then. And let me announce that we'll be holding program every Saturday 6 to 9. And every fortnightly, we'll be having one program, most probably on Thursday or Wednesday, on internal audit standards. I want to tell you that I'm not only the chairman of Internal Audit Standard Board, but I'm the chairman of DAB, Digital Assurance and Accounting Board, which takes care of forensic, which takes care of information system audit, which takes care of blockchain, artificial intelligence, data analytics, robotics, Internet of Things, and host of so many things. Today's program has specifically been coined looking at your imminent needs because audit period has started. Most of us are now busy on bank audits. The first session is blockchain security audit, which is taken by none other than a star in this area, CA Dr. Paul Jacker. I and Mr. Paul Jacker are on a group, internal audit group. And look at his zeal to serve this profession. He will always come out with question answers and ask the who's and who's of the profession to answer. And then he'll give the right answer. Ladies and gentlemen, our drive to perform will always ensure that the flag of this great institute flies at unprecedented heights. When you speak about blockchain security audit, you need to understand the concept of IT and risk management services. The most important thing which I want to tell you is that you need to understand how you can use technology for the betterment of your services to your clients. It largely means that value addition to client is taken at the highest level. Security risk is very, very important, and it includes security policies and procedures, document handling, contingency planning. If risks come from nowhere, how do you mitigate that risk? It takes care of security handbook. Online privacy, how it is maintained, is again a very important area. SOX compliance, may it be COSO or may it be IPPF standards. It also includes ICMS, Information Security Management System compliance. It also speaks of ISPS, International Ship and Port Security Code compliance. It also includes NABH, National Accreditation Board, and it takes care of EuroSOX, JSOX compliance, compliance to frameworks such as COVID, control objectives for information related technology, ITIL, Information Technology Infrastructure Library, use of audit frameworks such as ITF, Information Technology Assurance Framework, IPPF, International Professional Practices Framework, and lot of things. I'm just taking this from the exhaustive profile given by Mr. Paul Jacker. He has spoken on these areas. So cyber security again is a great area where we need to focus, because ultimately all of us have to work in tandem to render the best of the services to our clients and corporates. The second speaker of the day is CA Milind Limai. Mr. Milind would speak on evolution of internal audit, IA 1.0 to IA 4.0. You are all aware that internal audit is evolving on a very speedy pace. The reason is very simple. People have now started understanding that in order to be in the race, they have to be contemporary. They have to be very, very new. Whatever newer changes that have come needs to be assimilated, and practice firms particularly who want to render services to their clients and more importantly to the corporates and government needs to be updated on a daily basis. Honing of technical skills is one of the greatest areas on which the Institute of Chartered Accountants had a great reliance. We have a specific committee, continuing professional education committee, which takes care of education initiatives and endeavors of the institute. The third speaker of this is a lady, again a very dynamic lady. Her name is CA Kawaljit Kaur. She would speak about cyber vulnerability in daily life. Yes, daily life is also not safe today. Cyber vulnerability, cyber crimes, they will occur anytime. If you have money in your Paytm, somebody can draw it. Your bank accounts can always be emptied. So ladies and gentlemen, today's 3 sessions have been coined in such a way that you are able to effectively put at rest all the doubts which you have carried over the years on this. Feel free to ask questions, because is again a person who deals with forensic audits and is with one of the big fours. He is a person who's totally involved. He was with us and now he's working with one of the big fours into the forensic space. We all need to know how we could put things in the right esteem so that we are able to effectively service our clients. Not taking much of it, I don't want to stand between you and Paul Jacker, who's one of the authorities on this subject, a person who has dedicated his entire life in serving this profession. So I want to thank you all for giving a patient hearing. I want to just say the last concluding remarks, that you need to understand that as chartered accountants, we can drive as high as we intend to. But in the words of S. Radhakrishnan, our feet should be embedded to the ground below. There is a couplet in Urdu which says, आसमां पे किसी के ठिकाने नहीं होते, आसमां पे किसी के ठिकाने नहीं होते, जो जमीन के नहीं होते वो कहीं के नहीं होते. You have to remain on the earth, yet fly as high as you intend to. This is the basic philosophy of life. You can build as many castles as you have, but your foundation has to be deep rooted so that you're able to effectively withstand anything that comes through. Our 3 sessions shall always be indicating you towards such lifestyle where you learn, you hone your technical skills, and ultimately integrate that entire knowledge for the service of your friends. Thank you. Thank you so much. Over to Mr. Gupta for his further proceedings.
Thank you, Nanda sir. That was a very wonderful introduction and summary of the whole meeting. So let's start with our first session on the day on the topic blockchain security audit. The faculty would be Dr. Paul Jaikar. He's also a chartered accountant. I would firstly like to read his brief profile. Dr. Paul is Director for Information Technology and Risk Management Service at Messrs. C&K and Associates LLP Chartered Accountants. He is also an independent director, Panasonic Carbon India Company Limited. His past employment includes consultant at EY, IS Security Division, consultant at Royal Soft Service Limited, and many more companies. He has also provided services not only in India but across the world. The country includes USA, Malaysia, Sri Lanka. He also has a teaching experience. He was on the syllabus committee for MCA, University of Madras, 1984, and Board of Studies member, Shri Saraswati Tyagaraj College. His favorite subjects are management, and he's into IT related areas, which includes languages like Java, AWT, C++, C, Pascal, and many more. He's also associated with many institutions as a guest lecturer, which includes IIT, NITIE, Meenakshi College for Women, IFMR Madras, and also Chartered Accountants of India. So welcome, Paul sir, and thank you for giving your time for this wonderful, insightful session.
Thank you very much for the introduction. Thank you, Nanda sir, for the kind words. Thank you for the chairman. Thank you, Milind sir, and we welcome all the participants. Thank the institute, the IASB board. Thank you for the opportunity given to me. And what I'll do is I'll share the screen and then we'll get started. Yeah, so I've got the screen up. It's maximized now. What I'll do is I'll just quickly run through a kind of a brief introduction before I start off with the actual audit techniques. I just made a few slides, so it won't take maybe just a few minutes to explain blockchain. Now, blockchain is a very, this, what you see on the screen, the single linked list and the double linked list are very old data structures. Computer science students, and then of course today auditors also have to study data structures. A very simple difference is, think of this as items, like it could be an employee record or whatever, a student record. Just think that 5 is a student, 7 is a student, 3 is a student, and so on. In a single link list, what we call arrays, and maybe actually this is very popular, but blockchain is not built on single linked list. Why it is not built on single linked list is, the items can be only traversed from the first item called the, not the first item, the head, where the item pointers start, and then it will move to the next item, but we cannot come back. So we cannot trace a previous record. So they took the second data structure called the double linked list or doubly linked list, where you can go forward or you can come backward also. From student 5's record, I can go to student 7, go to student 3, and then come back to 7 and back to 5. So the first thing auditors we need to understand is the data structure on which this entire blockchain is built. Now, this is the data structure. So if we, let me just understand this for the first part. Then what I'll do is I will go through the application of that linked list. Now, this is how the blockchain is explained. It's explained in so many ways. But what we'll do is from the previous slide where we looked at something called a data structure, let's go to a business requirement. All our business requirements are built on either a data structure or an algorithm or both. Let it be ERP, let it be a simple package like Word or Excel or Tally, whatever it is. So now we have come to the business part of the computer application. So it's a simple example, just took these images off the internet. Now A is sending money to B. Let's say it's a check. I mean, olden days negotiable instrument check, or a piece of document also, like a bill of exchange. So that document today is a computer document. So we call it as it's actually called a message, MESSAGE. Those comfortable with Swift audits will know that it's a name, just a name, or even email, we call it a message. So that is now slightly changed. The name has changed to block, where we started with a document, then shifted it to a message. Now change the name to block. Nothing changes. It's only the nomenclature. It's called block. Now the block is sent to all the parties in the network. In the law of contracts, you have only two parties, I mean, A and B or whatever it is. But here in this blockchain, you can have more than two parties. That's the important part. So you may have hundreds of them or tens of them, or even two of them is fine. But in a blockchain, because we talk about keeping redundant copies, we need a few more people, a few more computers which are willing to store these messages. Once that is done, we expect all or most of the computers in the network to accept the message. All may not accept. Some may be fraudulent machines. Some may have lost the continuity of the chain. See, what will happen is the links get lost. That is also possible. But the majority should accept the transaction. Once it's accepted, then the block is kind of proved, it's authentic, the transaction is completed. So when I talk about this slide, we are looking at a business application. It doesn't have to be money. It can be a student writing an exam. It can be a auditor sending his audit report. And as of now, you also know some banks have started this. It's the Vajra scheme from the RBI. A lot of Indian systems have accepted this, but this third item is where the problem is. You have to find sufficient partners who are willing to store that information. Now, if you go back to the previous two slides and we look at a block, whether it is the first diagram or the second diagram, this is the content of the block. So what the auditor wants to do is check various components, like we look at a register or a ledger. There are debits, there are credits, there are totals, there are cross linkages, vouching, tracing, basically same thing. So we're looking at the contents of the block. They say a block, a Genesis is the first block. All the same structure, only thing Genesis is the first block. You'll have an index which identifies the block, timestamp. It's like a ledger, we put the date. Normally we don't write the ledger time in a cash book or a ledger, but maybe in a security register at the gate, we do put the time also. Just leave the previous hash, leave these two hashes. We have the data block here. So the data is now moving ahead. Now what we do is we create another block, the second transaction, the third transaction. And if you notice, there is this previous hash, this will be 0 here because the first block. But in the second block, of what we call block 1, this is 0. The previous hash points to the immediate previous item. The hash value itself will be used by the next block as the pointer backward. So if you are in block 3 and you had a doubt, somebody modified block 1 or block 2. Let's say we initiated payment, it got approved, somebody released the payment, and the people who are the NEFT operator or the authorized signatory suddenly had a doubt. Is this the authorized amount or somebody meddled with this? He can, he won't travel physically like I'm showing on the picture, but electronically we can trace the previous blocks. And if this is modified, then there's a long story. All of you will know that hash value and such things where the block, a defective block can be identified. So just to summarize, we have got the data structure which is a doubly linked list. We have applications which are using the doubly linked list, and we know the content of each message, or technically in this chapter, we'll call it a block. Now, when we say people will store data for us, like for instance, here I said, you may have thousands, hundreds, tens. I mean, where do we get them from? So now comes the next part. You can have a public blockchain. I mean, there are a lot of people who may put up systems like, we do use a lot of public systems like today we use internet, I mean, open internet. We use Google, so many applications are there. In fact, data sharing happens between your phone, Google, the maps, and so on. They are called public, but not too safe. Private, of course, we have to spend money. Investment is completely from the organization side. Hybrid is a mix of public and private, like we do for a internal network in a company, which is connected to the public internet and again connected back to the private internet in the branch office or some other office. There will be a lot of mechanisms like encryption and virtual private networks and so on. The last one is a lot of manufacturers or service providers get together and they give us a consortium of blocks. I mean, the people are willing to store the data. This can be done by anything. For instance, for a long time, banks used BankNet. Even Swift is very common now. There are a lot of things which use our NPCI gives you a lot of platforms. They don't give blockchain, that's Vajra. But anyway, right now we have open, public, not safe, private, totally owned, expensive, hybrid, a mix of both, sufficient security is needed. Consortium, of course, is provided by the hardware and the software people. So I think that should take care of our introduction to the, I mean, we know enough of blockchain now. Now, when we get into the application, there are three things to do. That's why we use the word cyber security, which today does not mean internet security. And unfortunately, the word is still used, but cyber is everything now. Total, it's like your olden days ISIT security, information technology or information system security. So you have a source of information. Why do we say true? Because you have a lot of fake sources, people who misguide and put wrong information. Basically, it's fraud, I mean, cheating. Then we want the data to go safely. And then there's a true destination. Now we read, in fact, in the last speaker will definitely tell you about phishing, spoofing, where we think we are doing something right, sending a piece of information, let's say, to the income tax site for a refund, but actually some fraudulent site is picking up the information. So that's where the word true is used here. We have all kinds of people stealing information, putting up false sites, etc. So that's where the false part of it comes in. Now, if an auditor is going to certify, and statutory auditors today have this cybersecurity certificate to be issued as part of the assurance certificates, then it's the source, destination, and the transmission as one entity, including data privacy protection, whatever has to be done as per the acts, IT Act, RBI Act, IRDA, so many acts are there. So this is, I would say, the compliance component of the blockchain. So we saw the data structure, you saw the application, you saw what a block is made up of, and now we come to the compliance structure part of it. Now the actual blockchain itself has to be an application. It can be a movie distribution to various theaters, content transmission like a Netflix or Hotstar. It can be music transmission, it can be radio station, it can be data like money transfers, accounting. So all of them, we have one common word, application. Today they abbreviated it to app, APP. It doesn't matter, right? From phones to large computers, they call computer applications. Now, applications need a security assessment. So whatever I'm teaching today is a part, this is a part of it. And this part we already know. Auditors doing security, application security, or what we call ITAC, IT application control testing, IT application security testing. We have seen this. So it's a kind of a combination of everything. Application, hardware, network, everything put together is our blockchain. So these are all known to us: server configuration, transport security. I mean, this is basically machines. This is the transmission between two machines, making sure that the right people are sending and the right people are receiving is authentication. Session management is during this communication, nobody is eavesdropping or tapping into the messages or changing them. Authorization, only the right people have been picked up. Input validation is very important because today, even in XBRL, 96% of the XBRL data is read by machines, only a small component by human beings. You could look at the SEC inline XBRL. They have an open source software for that. Anyway, the point is, it's not done by humans anymore. So humans, we could trust them, but now machines do it. A thief will modify the software in the machine, so it puts in the wrong data. Then, of course, we have the file uploads, very common today, bulk uploads. They call them backend bulk uploads, names for it. Again, this has to be verified. Cache control is where data is momentarily waiting. It's like a traffic signal and vehicles are waiting. If you've seen any old movies, the gangster movies, they'll usually shoot the gangster at the toll gate because that's where the vehicle will slow down. So wherever data is caching, we have to be very careful that it's protected. Error handling, it should go to all the errors detected should go to the right people. They should not be suppressed by thieves. Content theft, of course, yes, we understand. Then local agents and plugins. We've add a lot of software. In fact, people add a lot of plugins to Excel also without checking the vulnerabilities. And then we have the general form and style. That's mainly for our reporting and data structures. Denial of service is basically shutting down the service available from a server by overloading the request. So this part is again well known to all our auditors who are doing the application security part of it. Now, I told you as a cybersecurity, the meaning has expanded, and we do this as a part of ITGC or ITAC. Application control, information security, we are waiting for the data, the privacy is changed to Data Protection Act now. Network security, end user, operational, etc. A disaster recovery today is almost online. Okay, so now let's get straight to the testing part of it. Now, whenever you do a blockchain testing, actually the word used is called penetration testing, but what it means is you search for vulnerabilities, you search for weaknesses, and then you try to see whether the weakness can be exploited. So that's the first part is, this will look more like hacking or cybersecurity. It's information gathering and threat modeling. Now, we said you understand and analyze the business part of it, not the technical part, not the network, not the encryption, looking at the business. So one is we need to have a diagram like we draw flowcharts for our ITGC or IFC. We need to have a drawing, it's called an architecture drawing or a deployment diagram of this entire blockchain. So that's just the same as we draw a flowchart like a BPM and flowchart. Then you have to start looking at the control weaknesses, which we are calling as threat entry points. Since we have all done this COSO framework and all these IFCs and so on, we know, I'm just using different names, concept is same. First, process to be documented is our blockchain architecture. Second, weaknesses or potential threats to be identified. That's the threat entry points. That's what we call the control weakness, wherever it is. Next, we try to see what data we can get on, whether this can be exploited. You'll have to read a document called CVE, Common Vulnerability Exposure. So it's published regularly. NIST and a lot of people do that, cert.org. In India, it's certain. It's all free. I mean, it's all available as public documents. So we have to see what kind of things can go wrong. Whereas in IFC, we draw mostly on our experience and knowledge. Since our experience is only for the last few years for blockchain, we go by third-party publications also, reliable third-party publications. Then if you have a contract which is being interpreted by the software, for a contract interpreted by software is like a vending machine. You select some item which you want to buy, then you drop some currency inside. It has to make a lot of decisions. Whether the money was sufficient for the transaction, change has to be returned, the item has to be dispensed. We call it a contract. Of course, it's not called a smart contract, but just think of it that way. So if the machine starts dispensing the wrong items, it doesn't understand cash returns and excess balances, our contract goes wrong, we lose business. So that's why we need to see electronically how are these terms identified. A small part of this will be in your SAP or any ERP where they have agreements which are configured. This is a little bigger than that, smart contract. Then we also need, why are we doing the security testing? Of course, the general thing is in a public stealing data, but sometimes you have to do this for compliance requirements. In India, that is the most common. Normally, if you meet the compliances, we say, fine, you're ready to go. Only very few managements go the extra mile to check for other vulnerabilities. So the objectives have to be decided or maybe set by the audit committee, it depends. Then what is our testing strategy? This is a normal audit point. Compliance readiness, again, audit point. Which acts apply? I will have to do a separate study because a lot of acts apply, depending on if it could be a fintech, regtech, insurtech, etc. kind of engines, or this could be a part of a payment system or part of a bank system, or it could be part of a supply chain management. That those compliances are actually specific to India. Or if you do global business, then add on the European or the American or the Australian, New Zealand, those compliances. Test environment, of course, we set up. That's normally a Linux-based machine with tools. Create the test data and you go ahead. The second part is after you have mapped all these things, you have identified, objectives are clear, then you start trying to test the system itself. Now, APIs are application programmer interfaces. What it actually means is you have a large software and it has to be exposed to some external software for use. So what you do is you write what is called an API, and the software from outside will call functions where the API, whichever API you have made available, and those functions will return the data. So think of this like a library where you're not allowed to go into the library. All your work must be done at the counter. Only you can tell them what book you want or returning or reserving. The librarian or the staff at the counter handle the business. The actual library itself is not available directly to the end user, but through this counter we can work. Think of that counter as an API. Today we have to work with a lot of APIs. You have loan engines, you have mortgage engines, you have this, in fact, a lot of things when you use your QR codes, your barcodes, there are a lot of APIs which pick that information and pass it to some other software, pick up some results from there and pass it to the software here. A simple example is where you swipe your credit card. I mean, we know it goes to a payment gateway, then, or it may go to a switch, credit card switch, which moves the traffic to other locations. But think if you use the credit card in an ATM, a white label ATM, then the flow will get much higher. There are more APIs to be tested. And this will be there in our earlier diagram, where we map to the blockchain, we'll know how many APIs we are using. Then what is the functions? It's not always money data which moves. Quantity data can go. In hospital, it can be patient records. Not much in India, but worldwide insurance and patient data moves through computers. But we have a lot of other data in India, like railway reservations, cargo booking, both internal and external cargo booking, customs. A lot of those functions will be involved. You have to test each function. Then, of course, the manual is the preferred thing today. Tools are coming in. Automatic tools are coming. It's not as good as an automated testing of a, let's say, like a diagnostic module in your car when you take it for service. They just plug it in and they diagnose the problem. Unfortunately, in blockchain, it's a new technology. Applications are new, and in India, it's new for the programmers and the auditors. We're using mostly foreign products which are modified. So manually, if it's done, these false negatives and false positives get reduced. Then, of course, we do the static, means we just check with some simple data, but dynamic is you'll have to simulate the entire system. Today, it's possible. You don't have to invest a lot of money. But you need the right simulation software. Network vulnerability, standard tools like Nessus. We use Kali Linux, it's open source, so it's free. Any network vulnerability is fine. Application vulnerability, same thing. You could use burp for the mobile applications, BURP, or you could use the standard tools we use for the applications if they are like programs on machines. But if they are on the mobile apps, then use that BURP, that burp tool, which is fairly reliable. Then blockchain integrity assessment is done through our hashing engines. We have to check when somebody cheating, modifying hashes. Then, of course, as usual, the auditor needs evidence. You have to document all what you have tested. I mean, this is another headache because, see, if it's automatic, it creates a log automatically. I suggested manual because right now, the suppliers, vendors themselves are not very sure of the what you call internal architectures. So, and the APIs. So you as a auditor will have to make sure that all this, whatever we have done in the work and the results, you have captured screenshots, print out some logs somewhere. I mean, a lot of documentation has to be done manually. Then comes the third stage. Third stage, you exploit the vulnerability. So same thing, again, the security weakness is exploited. We need tools. You exploit the weaknesses and verify the vulnerability, then you exploit it. Once you've done that, thereafter, it's a standard penetration testing. You could use any standard Kali Linux tool. Maybe sometime later we could have some practical demonstrations. Then web application, we use the OWASP, OWASP. They give the top 10 vulnerabilities. Based on that, you will run tools for cross-site scripting or mostly web-based testing. This is all mostly the routers, switches, configuration, encryption, IDS, IPS. Network is that, and web, of course, is the interface. Then social engineering attack testing is not a tool. You'll have to do mystery shopping with the staff in the organization, customers, those who use these systems, and try to see whether they're gullible enough to part with information which is useful to a thief or a bad person. Unfortunately, many people post things in their web pages like contact person, email, phone numbers. They are all handles for further study. Some of them put the employees, write them in blogs. Outsiders, customers, etc., they put it in the social media. This is getting a little difficult, but you have done the social engineering audits. It is a bit difficult because the avenues for passing on information have increased very, very much. And then, of course, same thing, document. So unfortunately, in auditing, if you are, when some trouble arises later, what you have to remember is, if it's work not documented, is work not done. So even if you have done all this, didn't capture the documentation, nobody will believe us. Okay, so now we run through the quick checklist. I know this may be a little new for some auditors, but most of the auditors have worked with this cybersecurity certification or IDGC, you would have come across all this. One is you want to check whether data is encrypted or not encrypted. Is this a question only for blockchain? No. This is a question for everything, because our IT Act says certain data, the SPDI data, has to be encrypted. We've got a lot of rules on this. Then at-rest data in transit. So already you will be running a lot of tools or checking, or even at least taking a screenshot of data. If you get garbage, we generally say encrypted. If you see clear text, you're able to read it, it's unencrypted. So the same tool, nothing different here. Then you have to check for code, which doesn't do anything in the program. Now, I mean, it's not wrong, but generally we suspect, why are you having code which is not used? They'll say it is an old code, we modified it, etc. They have to delete it. That's why we have version control. Code with no effects, you find out through your mapping or scanning software. That will do. Same olden days, whatever we use, same software. Then test for message call with hard-coded. See, the word gas is used in, see, there are many blockchain architectures available. The regular blockchain, which most of us learn and study, is from the used by one of the early users for that was the Bitcoin. But Ethereum, which is another currency, they took the blockchain, but put some controls in it. One they call the cost to perform the transaction. It is called gas. Obviously, Americans call their petrol as gas, and so if you run out of gas, your car stops. So they call it gas. I mean, it doesn't necessarily a term. This is actually a amount of cost you're building in. When a transaction goes out of control, goes on duplicating itself, we call it as endless loops or iterative loops. The gas will get lost because every transaction takes away a certain amount of this gas. It starts with 15,000 gas units. You can double it to 30,000. That 15 million, I'm sorry, 15 million, not 1,000. 15 million gas units. And then as it gets depleted, the packet will die. Now, this is olden days internet thing. It's called round trip time and time to live. So if your packet is indefinitely getting lost on the internet, time to live is 24 hours after the packet is lost. Otherwise, the network will get flooded with the packets which are really meaningless. They got lost. The auditor has to check, because one way of denying service in a blockchain is to keep packets endlessly loitering around. So to make sure that packets are killed after a certain amount of time. Then if you are getting any unexpected, again, Ether is used, it's Ethereum, any unexpected balances for these gas amounts, that means a thief has recharged something or introduced more of these units which can be expended to keep the packet alive. We don't want packets alive if they don't reach a destination in a certain amount of time. Then hash collisions are when you run a arithmetic formula and you're creating a unique number. If two or more packets produce the same hash, how do we handle it? Or how does the customer's blockchain handle it? Does it drop both of them? Keep the first one, set right the second one, we have to check. Because you sometimes say, sometimes data is getting lost, sometimes it's there, so we have to check that. Then unused variables, I would safely take it as the same as code with no effects. Now this right to left override, etc. So I've just put a small example here. Now if you had a file which had cod.exe, some file name mytext, it'll get changed because it goes right to left override. It'll change it to mytext dot. The exe will go first, and the doc exe if you reverse, you'll still get exe. But cod if you reverse, you'll get doc. The doc is a Word file. It's an extension for a Word file. Machine thinks it's an honest, genuine file and it'll accept it. Actually, it'll be a troublesome nuisance virus, Trojan. I mean, some kind of a bad program. So we need to look for these control characters if they are in the stream. Same test which you'll be doing for a modem string for cleaning them. You can write a C program, a Java program. We have enough tools today. So modem strings also, you clear off all the control characters. Then typographical error is mainly human data input, whether it's trapped or not trapped. Denial of service, the block, the gas limit is the same thing I told you. If you have unexpected recharges happening, then some fellow is keeping unwanted blocks alive. Now, all this can happen in the real environment of your client. The old name for it is ITF, where you have integrated test facility. You run the tests on the real system itself, or you can run it on their UAT, or you can simulate it in the auditor's office also. Then we also need to see the arbitrary, actually, when you have functions and variables and control is jumping to different modules, we can map it using software. You need to use tracing software. It's a part of debugging software. So you'll know immediately that somewhere there are some suspicious rerouting of logic. Same thing for the gas griefing. Inheritance order is when you have a concept called object-oriented programming, they will take an existing object, it's called a class, and then make an instance with certain modifications. They call it polymorphism or overloading. Now you have to check, make sure that they have not skipped a class in between. Like say from animals we come to mammals, mammals we come to elephants. You have to make sure mammals is not skipped. I mean, it's easy to explain, but if you have the right tool, I said do it manually, but some of these will run tools. I mean, but we'll run the tool manually. Operator will sit and run it because we need to remove, as I told you, since blockchain is still not 100% stable technology. It's there are so many variants. It's like our COVID right now. So So you need to run it manually. So you, with your experience, you'll know, okay, this is immaterial, or this is not serious, or this is serious, and so on. Same for requirement violations. Same thing here, we'll use the same tool. Proper signature verification is digital signatures. I mean, not the ones we buy, but what computers do is they have hash formula built in. They have a problem here. The US version of the hash or the algorithm is not available to the rest of the world because somewhere in some ancient rules, 80s or some 70s, the Americans said that encryption is a part of the, it becomes a part of the defense equipment. So if you sell an encryption algorithm to an outsider, then it can be sold only to governments with agreements and so on. So the problem started with languages like Java, which had to include encryption classes in their syntax. So they use one syntax for US and a different syntax for the rest of the world. But of course, India has sufficient encryption algorithms, so we are not short of those. But if you're doing a US-India kind of connection for traffic or Europe-India, you'll have to make sure that your signatures are all the same. Standard signatures like Class A, Class B, Class C. You also need to look at, I mean, the documentation would have told us what type of signatures are used. Then we go to the missing protection against the signature replay. I fraudulently sign a packet and then I can introduce it back in the network. And actually this happens with mainly they're called decoys. Misleading, because blockchain holds a lot of copies. If you put in a proper packet which will go to all the copies, that's why you have to go to a slightly different data structure, I didn't mention it, called Merkle trees, which can also detect if a genuine looking component has got replaced all over. It's like you start with a fake Aadhaar card and you linked it to everything, your passport, your driving license, your bank, income tax. All of them will depend on that one fraudulent card. I'm just giving a simple example, but in real life, the signatures are all computer generated. Then randomness is basically the algorithm. How do we check algorithms? Difficult. So what we do is we go with standard algorithms like 256-bit encryption or 512-bit encryption. You have to trust someone, so we trust the mathematicians. So, I mean, we say stronger the algorithm, less weak the randomness will be. Then, of course, we have to look at shadowing of state variables. Is a state means whether it's active, whether it's waiting for some input, it's static or it's dynamic. Now, these variables will be tampered with. So a credit card comes to a buffer, it's waiting because a queue is there. Some fellow will hack the queue and take away the card numbers because they're not encrypted. So what we say, data in transit also has to be encrypted. Then there's an overhead. When the machine starts picking up this data from the queue, it'll have to decrypt, process, again encrypt, or it can drop it. This wherever shadow basically means wherever you're storing. A shadow is wherever you're storing, cache, buffer, whatever, temporary files. Wherever you're storing, you have to make sure nobody's tampering with them. Question is, how do thieves find out? They study as much as more than what the auditor studies. So they generally catch all these things. Then constructors are function names, which you call for an object. This is from OOPS. They can cheat on the constructor name. That's why I had to check for this. Like you probably got WhatsApp messages saying, look for the, suppose a Canara Bank, the A will be a different type of character. So obviously it's a ASCII code will change. Those kind of things, mostly program-based cheating. Then malleability, signature modification. Again, possible. Actually, we shouldn't discuss this, but maybe we sometimes do this in a electronic signature. Sometimes, okay, if it's an urgency, we sometimes do it. Then blocking values as a proxy for time. That's also wrong because timestamp is extremely important. You cannot block it. Otherwise, you won't know when the packet was introduced. Fraudulent packets usually play with the timestamp, like fraudulent email, fraudulent Swift messages, same problem here. Authorization, a TX is basically the original sender. Message means the immediate previous sender. Now, sometimes messages go through hundreds of origins, like our post goes, from India, if you post a letter to US, it goes to so many post offices, sorting mechanisms. By the time it reaches the end, If the origin is lost, we have this problem with Vostro and Nostro accounts also. Cannot trace a money trail for laundering. But here in the package, we can't accept that as a excuse. A trace should reach the origin. We can't say we lost it. Then transaction order dependence, almost the same thing. DOS with a failed call. See, you keep on calling, and something like you don't want another person to receive phone calls. So you keep on dialing him. His phone will be flooded with useless calls and he can't take the real calls. Then untrusted callee. Now this delegate is when you authorize somebody else to use your credentials. I mean, not for the login, I'm not talking about that. But let's say a company is placing orders. Now, if you are comfortable with GST in customs, in logistics, for instance, in Chennai, we have a Hyundai car manufacturing plant. There is a middleman who imports things for the just-in-time concept, I mean, to make it possible. He's neither the importer nor the consumer. Now, actually, he's like a holding, it's like a warehouse. Now, GST and IGST, the customs, they have given a special status for these companies in logistics where they just pass through entities where they actually receive it on behalf of the actual consumer. Customs is paid, of course, through them, but they collect it back from the company which imported it. Think of that as a delegate. So Hyundai has delegated their credentials to the warehouse company which imports these parts and then supplies it back to them. Delegation can lead to problems if instead of Hyundai, somebody went and substituted some other company. He'll get the goods, he'll sell it in the black market or do something. Something similar to that. Fraudulent blocks are created and the business goes off elsewhere. Then deprecated means they are no longer in use. Solidity is also a part of your Ethereum. Actually, most of it I've done Ether here because blockchain as a Bitcoin user, it has run into a lot of problems, particularly after the Chinese started generating currency, large quantities. It's almost end of its maximum value. Ethereum is being used extensively for business purposes. More than the Ether coins, it is being used for business. So most of your clients, unless a very old client who's still stuck with the Bitcoin kind of architecture, most of them will be on the part where they are using the Ethereum kind of things. So I'm sure that we can definitely, now if you have an older client, then you have to change a few things in this checklist. Then assertions. Assertions, we have the standard assertions like is it valid? Is it non-reputable, non-reputation? Is it recorded properly, etc.? The standard auditing assumptions like timing, etc. So those we'll have to check whether any accounting, actually it's called auditing and accounting assertions. But today, say any business is the same, whether it's run digitally or with a piece of paper, same assertions we have. Then we also look for the unutilized storage pointers. The pointers are addresses, memory addresses, disk addresses. Then we look at the variable default visibility. No variable should be visible to outsiders. That's what we say. But again, as an auditor, we'll be using tools which will check the state of the variable. Okay, between a hacker tool and an auditor's tool, there's no difference. They're almost the same, except we change names. Then whether you can redo a transaction, there's no concept of mutancy. That is, you cannot mutate or change or modify, if not possible. Then these are self-destructors, as I told you, will kill packets if they're not reaching anywhere. But then we need to get messages back. We have to retransmit the entire transaction. A lot of work here. If you're doing ATM audits now, the T+1s and all your NPCI-based money transactions, including UPI, API, AMPS, all of them, packets have to go in time or destruct and generate a fresh stream altogether. Then same thing here, withdrawal of that gas, as I told you. Call return value, error messages particularly, or data which is returned should be going to the right person. Then floating, this Pragma is actually part of our computer stuff which we use. They are called pre-compiler directives. They tell the machine what libraries to use when doing something. Usually these are fixed. If you find floating like if, def, and those kind of syntax, you have to be careful. That means Certain transactions, it will use certain precompiler directives. The rest of the transactions, it will use a different precompiler directive. So this, I mean, normally in any program, this is a red flag. Then compiler version, same thing as deprecated, which we said. And then integer overflow, underflow is the standard test from the 80s, which we have been doing for arithmetic accuracy. And test for function default. Again, functions are the small programs which process the whatever data. And are they visible? Do we know which function is processing? We are not supposed to know. Except the APIs, which we know. We are not supposed to know anything else about what happens inside the package. So I just picked up some list of these tools. They're all open source, so you could definitely have a look at these. I have a lot of open source tools available. And actually, one of the problems you face with clients is the large clients want only paid tools. They, like, the old ACL kind of problem, IDEA ACL, they wanted only that. They didn't want you to bring any free tool. But what I'd suggest is when we are learning, at least the learning phase, we can use open source. And then when you go to the client, suppose you have only one client and once a year operation, you can download in a fresh machine. What do you call that? Trial version means that they'll let you use it free for a certain days, 15 days, 1 week. Keep all the audit program ready, download it, run it for that 1 week, finish the job. If you have sufficient business, then you can invest in tools. Tools become obsolete. They need annual subscription. A lot of issues out here. But anyway, to learn, let's start with something. So we have a lot of these tools which check the, this registry is not your Windows registry. This is the contract registry, which is maintained somewhere on some of the computers on the internet. Then you have the security verification platform, a very standard thing which we use. Okay, now these are Haskell programs for fuzzing and okay. The thing is, you can build contracts dynamically. The contracts can change. In the US, housing contracts and property sale and purchase is allowed in smart contracts. Europe, a lot of trade happens in smart contracts. In India, it's only the banks which have kind of allowed it. RBI has allowed it. It's called Vajra. You can go through it on the internet. A few banks have tried, but as the cost is high, because they don't have consortium networks, they're forced to use private networks, private blockchain. So the cost is a problem. Then Manticore, okay, this is symbolic execution tool on the smart contracts. In fact, Axis Bank also has got a blockchain. Many of them have got Vajra program, VAJRE. If you look at that, you will get a good idea. Okay, these are alternative smart contracts. Now, what is a smart contract? A smart contract is something like you place a order in a hotel, you ask for 3 items, then you call the waiter after some time, tell him, remove item 2 and put item 6 instead. It keeps on modifying, negotiating, changing funds. Now with logistics, the routes have to be changed when material comes to you from different places, shipping routes, etc. So that's what this whole thing is about. So we got some more tools here, and I'll share the PowerPoint also. We got all these. Mostly we are looking at the contract, signatures, encryption. That's on the technology side. Network, same tools used as normal network audit. For the application and web, same tools as used for the ITGC or ITAC. And this is, of course, a collection of vulnerabilities, but I'd suggest we also look at the CVEs, which are regularly published. So I think we are on time. So I'd like to thank you. And if you have any questions, I will take them.
Sir, thank you. Thank you so much, Paul, sir, for your wonderful insights. We would be needing you at the end of the session for
sure. I'll be here.
Question and answer.
Yes.
And sir, also we are having a big demand for your presentation PPT. If you could.
Yes. I'll send it.
We'll share with you the email IDs so that.
Yeah, I more or less know them, Arun. And yes, I'll send it.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you once again, and all the participants.
So now moving ahead for the second session of the day on the topic evolution of internal audit IA 1.0 to IA 4.0. For that, I would like to welcome CA Milind Limaiji. Welcome, sir. I would Hello, can you hear me, sir?
Yes, yes.
Yes, yes. Thank you, sir. Thank you for providing us this wonderful opportunity to be a part of your knowledge. So I would just quickly read your brief profile. Sir is a chartered accountant with 25 years of experience in assurance and operational audits. He has always been in practice as chartered accountant and has carried various assignments in this field. He is also specialized in carrying due diligence reviews required for strategic investments and merger and acquisitions. Sir also specializes in designing standard operating procedures for various business environments. Sir has completed his FAFD certification from ICI and handles forensic audit, Encrypted and Pandit. Sir handles the internal audit and management audit assignments for companies in business houses, MNCs, software companies, and public sector enterprises. He has also presented many papers on internal and management audit at various seminars and conferences organized by professional bodies. Sir has also contributed many articles on internal and management audit for the magazines and newsletters published by various professional forums. Sir was a secretary in the years 2004 to 2007 and vice chairman for 2005 to 6 of Pune branch of ICI. He has been co-opted as a member of Internal Audit Standard Boards 2020 to 2021. Thank you, sir, and welcome to you.
Thank you very much for a brief introduction. Without wasting much of the time, let me take you to my session. Before that, I would like to thank Dr. Paul for enlightening us on various issues involved around security in all this blockchain and all these fundas, because my topic is definitely again relating to the same. So on one side, when Dr. Paul was showing some of the facets involved from the security perspective, on the other side, it is I would like to highlight the issues which would bring to our notice that how exactly we need to mature as internal auditors when it comes to this kind of virtual or more automated or AI dominated kind of environment. So I'll just share my screen with all of you. Is it visible now?
Yes, sir, it is.
Yeah. Okay. So today, when we are talking about the global trends in internal audit, well, everywhere the internal audit community is very well connected, because the fundamentals, unlike the statutory audits, which require, of course, because of introduction of IFRS, so many things have come in common. But still, there are a lot of different kind of statutory requirements in every country, which differ from country to country. Statutory audits can still be a country-specific topic to a certain extent. But when it comes to global trends in internal audit, it is the one single community of internal auditors which talk the same language, which face the same problems, and which talk about the same solutions to overcome those same problems. So while we are talking and trying to understand what are the current trends, let us first go through the evolution of internal audit and let us understand that how it has matured over a period of time. Particularly in India, this transition has started about 30 years back. So that way, the concept of internal auditing is not new. It started in the way back in 1854 with the industrial revolution in the cotton manufacturing with steam power, etc. Post-independence also, when the manufacturing units expanded gradually, this concept was coming in picture, because some of the people who were exposed to the then foreign or Western kind of environment, they had understood the importance of internal audits. And the volumes of supplies was also increasing. The thrust of independence, thrust was placed on independence of the reviewer to validate the transactions, etc. And so post independence till another for 35, 40 years, the things were really improving on its own, but at a very small, very slow pace. However, when economic reforms and globalization happened from 1991, internal audit function changed dramatically. Our industrial world, rather every single one of us, got exposed to the foreign culture, the methodologies adopted by MNCs, their work practices, their best practices, etc. And that was completely new for our industrial, particularly industrial world, when we were just coming out of that so-called license Raj kind of situation. And that is where the internal audit gained the momentum. So in today's session, we will quickly try to understand that how evolution of auditing happened from 1.0 to 4.0 and how we as the internal auditors need to mature ourselves, understand so many things beyond the normal accounting and auditing fundamentals is very much necessary. So audit 1.0, now those who are my per se batchmates or around 50 plus age and in practice for more than 25, 30 years, they will definitely remember that during 1.0, it used to be purely manual audit. So all those red color ledgers and bank books and cash books, and we used to use pencils and green pens and calculators to check so many things. When Audit 2.0 came out, which was risk-based, let us discuss that in further slides, but we shifted to computers, so started using Excel's, CAT, that is computer-aided audit tools, so different softwares which are available in the market or maybe developed in-house. Audit 3.0 is definitely offshoot of 2.0, which is not, okay, Audit 1.0 is almost over. Now we can say that it is over when everything is now in the computerized or mechanical kind of environment. So no more pencils, green pens, calculators, no more physical books of accounts, etc. So 1.0 is now almost vanished or completely vanished. But audit 2.0, 3.0 and 4.0, they are going to go hand in hand because the fundamentals of audit 2.0 are going to continue even when we are adopting audit 3.0 as well as 4.0. So what is 3.0? So it is more of inclusion of data in audit analytics tools. So the data analytics is now going to be more important over a period of time with analytical apps, Python, etc. to be used during our audit procedures. And in 4.0, we have to align ourselves with IR 4.0. We'll discuss that in subsequent slides once again. But we have to align ourselves with IR 4.0, where semi-progressive automation of audit tools to check RPAs, that is robotic process automation, sensors, IoTs, Internet of Things or Internet of Services, RFIDs, GPSs will be there. So our audit tools will have to be in sync with these factors which will be coming or which are just knocking our doors in Indian environment. So what was internal audit 1.0? Let us quickly catch up with those things for those who have done it already and those who are fortunate enough not to be in those era. Let me understand and let me tell you that what was that. It was primarily transaction audit, independent transaction audit. So support to statutory audit rather than any productive results. So the scope definition used to be like you are called in as internal auditor. The management tell you that, boss, this time our statutory auditors, they have decided that they will be covering around 10% sample. So you please check remaining 90%. Now, remaining 90%, again, it was a very dicey situation because when the statutory auditors were going to select random sample of 10, you never know what will be remaining for you in advance or before statutory audit to check as 90%. So virtually it used to become 100% transaction audit. And then there was no concern for overall operations or functional relationships. If a purchase bill is coming in front of you, you just check the accounting entry, whether the name of the party is correct, whether the calculation is correct, whether the rate applied is okay, multiplications, additions, deletions, everything is okay. That amount is appropriately posted. The tax is appropriately posted in the respective ledger accounts, and whether that has been authorized by the respective authority or not. Just end of it. No aga picha, what happened in the past, what is going to happen in the future with that transaction. Nobody was interested, neither the auditee nor the auditor. And that was 1.0. So the overall approach was, it is a reactive, more on detective controls, a very functional approach. It was compliance focused and standalone, that no need to check what is the overall function is talking about. This slide has got relevance in next couple of slides. So now we matured after 1991 when the MNCs products in industry also came in, and the MNC audit firms like Big Fours, they also came to India in a big way. And that is where this risk-based internal audit in its initial era started focusing on so many other things like substantive testing of transactions rather than mere accuracy and correctness. So the necessity for cost optimization was the basic issue. Efficiency in resource utilization, timely and reliable information were in the foreplay then. So with the introduction of integrated ERP systems, complexity of transactions, volumes, procedural diversities, risk-based internal audit was definitely required, and we also adopted to that particular methodology. So now, when COSO framework was introduced because of Enron and other financial frauds also, the whole gambit of internal audit changed, and we started talking about the process audit or the risk-based internal, which was focusing on the process. So in earlier example, when the auditor used to check only the single standalone invoice received from the supplier, now the auditor started considering right from the PR or purchase requisition, that why the environment or someone triggered the purchase of a particular product. Right from there, how the PO was generated, how the rates were discussed, how the supplier was shortlisted, then whether the material was received on time, whether the quality of the material was correctly checked, entire material which was accepted, which is as per the standard or required norms, and then finally how the bill has been paid after considering any applicable withholding tax. So entire process came in as the gambit of the audit instead of that standalone transaction. So what exactly the change came in? Now, this has got reference to my earlier slide. So on one side, we checked that what was I 1.0. So on one side, it was reactive. Now 2.0, it became proactive. There were detective controls. Now it is on the preventive control. So the participation of internal auditors in strengthening the processes started increasing with the introduction of IA 2.0. So functional approach, we had to leave it aside, and the business process based, as I explained, that right from purchase requisition to the payment of invoice, the entire business process based approach was involved. Instead of compliance, like statutory auditors are doing 10%, so you do it 90% remaining, it was risk based. Now, the risk associated earlier was if the materiality of any issue was not depending on the amount involved, it was more on the future risk involved in a particular gap or crack in this process. So earlier, if I find something, any mistake or some error of about 1,000 rupees, well, it is not material. So Mr. Auditor, let us not discuss this much more, and it used to go away. But now, even if it is 1,000 rupees gap, so far there is a gap. So far someone is able to crack, either knowingly or unknowingly, the entire process. Tomorrow that can result in error of lakhs of rupees. So the whole gambit of materiality changed when the risk associated to a particular transaction was discussed or came in picture. And then auditor had to take a very participative approach. So just point out the mistake and stay away, no more. If you are pointing out some flaw in the system, please tell us what are its implications, and please also tell us what are the suggestions to improve on those issues. So auditors were required to be more participative rather than a standalone audit approach. This is continuing for more than, I should say, 2.5 decades or 2 decades. But as we are moving more and more towards automation, IA 2.0 is now to be coupled with IA 3.0. So the basic fundamentals of risk-based auditing are not changing. But now more and more data, external data as well as internal data, is becoming available. So as all of you know, that data is the new oil for the 21st century. But for oil to be useful, it needs to be refined and then distributed. So the data also need to be collected with a purpose, analyzed and converted into useful information. So whatever data is becoming available to the internal auditor, the most important part is the reliable and timely data analytics is required. So not only to optimize the resources, but to help the organization in effective decision making. Now understand this decision making. Internal Audit 3.0 is now focusing or participating more and more in decision making or supporting in decision making. Of course, the final decision will be the hands of management, but the internal auditing would be happening in such a way that it supports that decision or it helps the management to take appropriate decision. So a very structured data collection and analysis involves in this value chain system of the organization. Increased use of technology and available data in public domains is also required while using the various data analytics tool very proficiently. So if you finally see, the overall approach is towards helping the decision, and it is no more a CFO based function, it is CEO based function. So anyway, earlier, anytime when any of the auditors walk in the premises, everybody else used to say, Mr. CFO, he is auditor, so this is related to you. CFO or his team, they used to be kind of catalyst or the mediators between the auditors and other departments of the organization. But now when it is focusing more on the decisions part of it, okay, the data of various sorts, not necessarily the accounting data, of course it remains, but it plays a very small role in the whole data analytics. When other data is being analyzed to support a particular decision, the internal auditing is focusing or moving away from CFOs to CEOs. That is a big time transition which is happening. So when earlier we used to call that we are participating in the growth of the company, we are partners in the growth of our clients, etc., still the job or the function was moving around the CFO. Now it is moving around the CEOs. Before we move further, let us understand how data collection is important and what really means by data analytics. So this is a very clear, what you can say, sort of a picture or the simulation created by British war experts during the World War II. Excuse me. The British fighter aircrafts were getting hit by the German war machine, and many aircrafts were coming back in very dilapidated situations. Somehow they were being able to come back, and say the pilots were able to save their lives. So they created a simulation by checking the bullet hits on these aircrafts, and you will see that all the red dots were the areas where the bullets were hit when these aircrafts had come back. And then everybody started discussing that how we can strengthen these areas and how we can improve the quality of our aircrafts, etc., etc. There were a couple of experts who were watching it quietly. And then they said that, do you think that the areas on which there are no dots are really very strong? There was a silence. Now we had about 5,000 aircrafts, and only we are left with about 1,500 good aircrafts, and out of 3,500, only 800 have come back. Can it not be a situation that the aircrafts which were hit by the bullets on those areas where there are no dots have not come back? They couldn't make it back. And that's the reason you don't have any data available for simulation. Now, that was a very eye-opener. The entire project was then relooked, and of course, they did other improvements on those parts, etc. The point which I want to make over here is, when we are saying data analytics, data available, yes, it is the data to be analyzed. At the same time, data not available is also a data. So when you are gathering particular data, when you are analyzing the data made available to you or gathered by you, always see that, okay, you have particular data at your disposal, but the data not available at your disposal will also be telling you something. It is very important in data analytics to remember that data available is the data, but the data not available is also data. With that, let us move to Audit 4.0, which is in the offing, which is round the corner, and all of us in due course of time will be working on these functions. So, in fact, Institute of ISB, Internal Audit Standard Board, under the leadership of Mr. Nanda, they are also working on different auditing standards to focus the institute's perspective towards Internal Audit 4.0. I was fortunate enough to participate for 1 year in that process. But yes, they are definitely heading in a right direction. So what is IA 4.0? So it has to sync with Industrial Revolution 4.0 or IR 4.0, Industry 4.0, which consists of 6 main technological principles. One, interoperability, that is inter-task or inter-operation dependency or functionality. Virtualization, which is simulated or computer generated. Decentralized, dispersed or regional, or wherever person or the member of the organization is there, the function can happen. Real-time capability, so it is very instant, agile. So the transactions are happening round the clock, 24/7. Service orientation, so it is service focused. So the approach of everybody, including the manufacturing industries, is not to provide a better product. It is to provide a better service through better product. Please understand the difference. All these years, when we are talking about that X is a better product, for example, Mercedes is a better product, right? Now, the focus of Mercedes is to provide a better product, to give better service to their customers, that how it is more comfortable, how it is more fuel efficient, how it gives lesser fatigue, how it is providing you so much of information and making your driving experience a pleasant thing. So Industry 4.0 is more on service focused. Let it be service, let it be a product, but it will be service focused. And finally, it is very flexible. So IA 4.0 has to be in sync with these 6 principles to increase the data availability, enable continuous data monitoring and validation, and improve the automation of audit processes. Now, when we are not into it as of now, we might sound it very difficult. It might sound very difficult that how exactly is going to happen. But yes, we need to overcome with these challenges, automate our audit processes, embed those with the ERPs or operating processes of the clients, and generate the algorithms in such a way that any kind of otherwise movement will be captured immediately and it is reported immediately. So the impact on IA environment will be like, we have to align on technology promoted by Industry 4.0 to collect financial as well as non-financial information. Now, all these days, when on my earlier slide, we discussed that when it is auditor, okay, Mr. CFO, this is for you. But now, so far, it is more on CEO focused. The non-financial information will also be required by us as auditors to churn out. So analyze that, model that, and visualize the data for the purpose of providing effective, efficient, and real-time assurance. Understand real-time assurance is very important. Our institute and so many other forums are discussing about this real-time assurance. The way we matured over 1.0 to 3.0, definitely we will also mature for 4.0. But as of now, it is sounding that, well, is really the audit function would be able to do that? Yes, it will be able to do that. So the current volatile business environment warrants a very agile, flexible, and future-ready internal audit function that can add value to an organization. And as such, the emphasis will be on the risk and control predictions with respect to the data point collection and analysis. Now, earlier in audits, we used to point out what has happened, and we used to point out that this has happened, this is happening recurringly, and this is the risk or threat to the organization. But now, with the available data, even before something happens or something doesn't happen, the auditor will have to will be required to point out that yes, this is the probable risk involved, and please check your controls and tighten them. So it's a big paradigm shift which is going to impact on our IA environment, that it will be a very live and agile kind of auditing when we will be required to predict the risks and advise on mitigating those risks on the spot. So how to re-engineer this audit function? With this increased use of RPAs, sensors, IoTs, and IOSs, and smart factories, the business world is moving forward toward a very highly automated and highly flexible and highly interconnected environment with the real-time capabilities. So the auditing profession would have to adapt to this wave of changes and leverage the emerging technologies to enlarge the scope of auditing, shorten on timing, improve accuracy, and eventually enhance the assurance level of the whole business world. So automation of the auditing function is also required. It is in the offing. And together, I also request our institute office bearers, torch bearers to look into this particular aspect and come out with more and more automated tools and methodologies for our members, so they get well equipped with this incoming IA 4.0 concept. Of course, it is not going to happen overnight, but somewhere we have to start walking. The first step has to be taken. It is happening. It's not that institute is totally unaware of these things. It is definitely happening. But together, all of us, we need to really focus on these things and equip ourselves, understand the entire scenario, and be a fantastic internal auditors in the world in the days to come. So thank you very much. Let me pass on the source credit of some of the information. Number one, when it comes to Audit 4.0, the DAAB of our institute, Digital Accounting and Assurance Board of our institute, has come out with a very fantastic concept paper about 6 months back, which talks in detail about Industry 4.0 and probable impact on overall auditing, including internal auditing. And some of the facts or some of the examples have been taken from the LinkedIn sources. So thank you very much from my side. I am available till the end of this session. Whatever questions are there, I'll be very happy to answer. Thank you very much. Over to the.
Thank you very much, Milind sir.
Yeah.
That was surely an eye-opening session for all of us. You made it very easy to understand the evolution on internal audit. Thank you, sir.
My pleasure.
So now I would request all the participants to write their questions or their any doubts. We'll take a note of it and we would get the answers from today's faculties. Thank you. So now moving on for the final session of the day on the topic cyber vulnerability in daily life. The same would be provided by Madam Kawaljeet Kaur. Madam is a FCA, Certified Fraud Examiner, USA, Certified International Investigator, Committee Member of PhD Chamber of Commerce, Deputy Chairpersons IIA Delhi, Member of Center of Quality Audit, ICI. She is a cyber fraud investigator, consultant, and trainer, and have over 18 years of experience in the industry. So I welcome Madam Kawaljeet Kaur. Hello. Somebody from the team can please connect from the faculty.
Madam.
Thank you for your patience. Madam will be joining us within 2 minutes. So please bear with us. I think she is there. Yes, she is connecting. I would request everyone to start writing their queries, get it and duly note and get you the answers from the faculty. till the time. I think ma'am is online. Yes, she's back. Good evening, ma'am. Can you hear us? You need to unmute, ma'am. Your mic is mute.
Sorry. Hi, good evening.
Thank you. Thank you for coming, ma'am.
Just had a session. Yeah.
Yes, please.
So shall we start?
Yes, sure, ma'am.
So just a quick question. So it's gonna be like a live audience, or like I just keep talking about it?
So we are around 800 plus participants currently. So we're going live, and you
then
carry on with the session.
asking any questions, or like how?
The question answer round will be after your session will be.
Achha, okay.
Post 8:30, we have a 20 minutes question.
But then nobody is gonna be asking anything from me.
No, not directly. I'll get the questions and directly ask to you.
I'm getting some glare on my face. Just give me a moment.
Yeah, sure.
It's better. Fair. So we can start.
Yes.
Shall I start, or like?
Yes. You can continue with your
introduction or theme building of the topic you want to do. What?
Okay, I'll do it for you.
Sure.
So thank you and welcome, ma'am, to the session. I'll just brief the public about your topic. The topic is cyber vulnerability in daily life. So I'll just also brief introduce you. Madam is a FCA, Certified Fraud Examiner USA, Certified International Investigator, Committee Member of PhD Chamber of Commerce, Deputy Chairperson IIA Delhi, Member of Center of Audit Quality ICI. She is also a cyber fraud investigator, consultant and trainer, and have 18 years of industry experience. So I request you, ma'am, to share your knowledge on the topic.
Thank you, Vikas. Thank you, everyone, for having me once again. And it's always a pleasure to get connected with ICL. Now, the topic which I'm going to take today, it's about how vulnerable we are to cyber threats. Now, this vulnerability comes with day-to-day life, guys. So whether we are behaving as in our personal life, or we talk as a professional, as an employee, the cyber threats are all around us. Well, I keep telling everyone that fraud is something which never goes out of fashion. It was there yesterday, it's gonna be there today, it's gonna be there almost forever. And that's the most unfortunate part, but that's what it is. The more we are getting into technology, the more vulnerable we are becoming to cyber threats. The one of the biggest threat, what we see these days, as an individual or as an employee, and that threat is called social engineering. Some of you might have heard about it. Some of you may be not so familiar with this. So let me talk about this concept slightly more in detailed manner and in understandable manner. Social engineering is nothing but a concept where somebody tried to deceive us, do a fraud with us, and by just encashing a human tendency to trust. We as a human wants to trust. This interaction of ours in society can happen in any manner. If let's say I'm traveling by train, bus, whatever mean I use, I interact with people who are sitting next to me, and so on. Then we also interact on social platforms, whether it is Instagram, Facebook, or your LinkedIn, or any other platform. And the moment we connect with people, we talk to people, that the cyber vulnerability comes into picture. Social engineering actually encash on this concept itself, which is a very unfortunate part, but this is what it is. So let me give you a very simple example how social engineering works. So let's say I will be sending a friend request to Vikas today. But before sending a request as a friend, because I'm a stranger, so higher chances that he'll reject this. Before that, I'll be doing a lot of homework on him. And when I say homework, that means what kind of person is he? What does he like? Where does he go? Where does he work? What kind of industry is working with? When I actually become a friend of Vikas, I should be talking like him, behaving like him. And that's the only way to connect better. If you see your normal day-to-day life, we have friends who are like us in terms of profession, in terms of intelligence, or whatever. There may be some common grounds. So social engineering also works similarly. So I'll be doing a lot of homework on him before I actually approached him. Then there is an absolute higher chances that he will accept my friend request. Platform could be anything. Anything means anything. These days, a lot of frauds are happening on LinkedIn, which we actually thought as a professional network. Now, once he become my friend, I really want to get a lot of confidential information out of him. This confidential information could be his personal information like KYC, bank details, or if he's working in a company and I have any interest in that company, that information can pertain to the company as well. But then he's an educated person. Why would he tell me this? So I have to build up that ground. I will give him enough opportunity to test me once, twice, thrice, 4 times. And each time he gonna test me, I gonna pass that trust, the test of trust. 4 or 5 times he's gonna test me that if I'm trustworthy, I'm gonna pass that test, and then he'll be embarrassed. He thinks, no, it is not right. She's a good friend. And the day he believes that it's time for me to hit, this is social engineering. This works as a process. That's why it's called engineering. Next time, when somebody try to get friendly with you, whether it is social platform or outside physical life, be little careful. It doesn't mean that we should not trust people. We should talk to people. However, how much information you should give, you should be mindful. Next time when you attend any meeting in a coffee shop or a lounge of a 5-star hotel, please once look around. I've seen a lot of people doing a lot of business meetings in lobbies of hotel, coffee shops. Have you ever thought that people who sitting next to you is also listening to you? Lot of information which you are exchanging with each other without knowing that there are many other people who are listening to you. Or next time when you check your phone sitting in metro, think about people around you. Well, I've seen a lot of people doing, video calls with their near and dears in public places like airport, like in metro. So have you realized that if I'm doing a video call with someone, the people who are sitting next to me can also see the video? Be mindful to it. So I'll tell you one a practical example which has happened a couple of months back in Delhi. A lawyer got a video call on WhatsApp in the morning about 10:10ish. He just picked up a phone like that. This is how we pick up a phone and see. And the call got disconnected. It was a video call on WhatsApp, got disconnected. So he thought that, it may be a prank call or just like somebody wrongly dialed. So it's fine. Within 1 minute, he got a message on WhatsApp, which had a picture. So this lawyer's face was at a very wrong place. And that picture was sent him that if you don't want this picture to be out, give us ransom. So imagine what was his fault. He simply picked up phone and looked at it and that's it. His face was clicked. That's called cyber vulnerability. So next time, guys, if you get any video call from any unknown number, please do not pick up, not even out of curiosity. Because on video calls, your picture can be clicked. Even, FaceTime has that option in iPhone. I can click your picture. It's just that other person get to know. But even if you get to know, what will you do with this? I've clicked your picture, I've clicked your picture. Now, cyber threats are everywhere. I just gave an example of video call. So let's talk more about social engineering, guys. It is so much around us that the more we talk about it, still lesser. There's a lot to talk. So one of the example of social engineering is called phishing. What is phishing? When you get a mail which says that this mail is from income tax department or the mail is from RBI, it's an example of phishing attack. Now, some of you might be thinking that these are, a very self-explanatory fraudulent mail. We don't trust it, but don't be so confident about it, guys. These days, fraudsters are very, very smart. And you'll be amazed to know that the success rate of such mails is 1 in 10. That means 10%, which is very, very high success rate. Even if you have a genuine line of business and you send these mails to a lot of people with genuine product, the success rate will be hardly 1%. But if fraudster get 10% success rate, imagine how good that trap will be. Couple of days back, I got a mail from ICICI Bank. You cannot tell anything wrong in that mail. Same color scheme, same logo, everything exactly same like ICICI Bank. Even the message is very similar to what banks generally send. And it had a link which says that you go there, update your KYCs and so on. But then you just cannot tell any problem in that mail. But then I actually spent about good 5 minutes on that mail. Reason being, I do not have bank account in ICICI. So I was amazed. And end of the day, I'm a fraud investigator, guys. So I was curious to know what is wrong in that mail. Well, of course, I did not click on it, but I have to understand the modus operandi. I checked everything. I couldn't find much. However, I looked at URL carefully. It was LCLCL, not ICICI. And in English, I and L do not look very different. How many people will really look at it? So if you broadly even look at the URL, it looks pretty similar like ICICI. So see how smart they people are. A lady called me in the afternoon. She said, do you want a credit card? I said, no, I'm busy in meeting. She said, I'm giving you RBI credit card. Said, okay. Has RBI started giving credit card? She said, oh, you don't know? Are you not educated? I said, no, I'm not so educated. I'm not aware of it. Then she said, no, RBI is giving credit card to, few people. So I said, okay, fine. I'm very curious. I'm very interested. RBI have chosen me for credit card. I said, okay, what's the process? She said, okay, I'll be sending my guy to your place to give, your existing credit cards statements for last 6 months, along with your KYC, and that's it. I said, madam, why are you bothering so much? Tell me the office address, I'll come. But she did not give me at all. She says, no, I will send my guy. And she almost threatened me. She said, no. I said, I will send the guy. See how smart the fraudsters are. When I get such calls, I really enjoy talking to them, because that's the only way I'll learn their, modus operandi. I want to hear the complete pitch. I want to understand what kind of frauds are happening in the market. That's the only way to beat it, to prevent it, isn't it? So guys, this is the example of phishing. Now, phishing comes with a variety called spear phishing. We call it, spell it like SPEAR, spear phishing. In spear phishing, it's a very targeted attack on a corporate. So for example, if I want to target employee of ICICI Bank, I'll be going for spear phishing. How does it work? Somebody will hack the email ID of either somebody senior in the bank or HR or a payroll department. From that ID, they're gonna be sending mail to all employees. We need your bank details to be updated in our payroll record. Well, how much is the probability that HR will send you a mail or payroll will send you a mail and you will not respond? Most of us will respond, right? And that attack is called spear phishing, which happens quite a lot in corporates. Very practical. They hack either the ID of somebody very senior like CFO kind of, or somebody from payroll, HR, IT department. then they will say that your official laptop is compromised, especially when you are working virtually these days. These frauds are very high. So you're going to get a mail from IT department of your company, which says that we have noticed a virus in your laptop. You have to give us access of your laptop so that we can remove it, which is again very common for most of the employees. And the moment you give access of your laptop to that particular person in that link, you're compromised. And it's your official laptop with a lot of confidential information, and it has been compromised. So next time, as a precaution, if you get a mail from either somebody very senior from the company or from payroll HR and asking for the detail which is unusual, cross-verify. Let's say if you have a number of that person or a toll-free number, call them up and recheck, did they really send such mail? Don't just rely on everything what you see, correct? And that's the way we handle these cases. So I hope we are clear with one fine form of social engineering called phishing. Phishing comes with a lot of variety, like spear phishing, like tishing. So tishing is text plus phishing called tishing. When you get a message, your income tax refund is issued, click on this link. Or you have won a lottery, or we are from GST department. This could be example of your tishing. The moment they ask for your bank detail to verify and all that, it is simply tishing. Text plus phishing. Another variant of this would call wishing. Voice plus phishing. Wishing. Each time we get a call, the way I got a call from RBI to give a credit card is an example of wishing. That we are calling from a bank. The bank account is compromised. Can you just give me the OTP which you have just received so that I can just correct it? Please do it fast. So remember, the modus operandi on these is that they create a lot of pressure on you. For example, hi, I'm calling from ABC Bank. I've just noticed your bank account. I see something suspicious. Can you just give me OTP to cross-verify? Please do it fast. Do it quicker. Why do they say faster, quicker? So that you don't get time to think. In most of the frauds, one thing which is common is pressure. You have to create a pressure on the mindset of other person. Do it fast. Take a decision now. You don't get time to think. Similarly, if you talk about frauds in bank, normally people create pressure on cashier, which you may have seen a lot of time. Can you do it faster? I have a lot of important things to do. And sometimes cashiers get into pressure, which ideally they should not. They should tell the customer politely that if you're in a hurry, you please leave. Or you wait. We have to do this process. We have to do this process. Many times bank frauds have been caught with the intelligence of cashier only. Because they observe a body language of a person. The only thing which is important is not document. Most important is the body language of a person. If I'm sitting at a cash counter looking very nervous, it's a sign, it's a red flag. Why am I so nervous? If a cashier asks me 2 questions, I'm not able to answer. If it is my account, why am I not able to answer? There has to be reason, right? And that is why they create time pressure. Do it fast. Check it fast. So we should not get into that pressure. You may have seen that in marketing gimmicks also. When townships tell you, if you don't buy that in Navratri, you're going to be missing this lifetime opportunity. Buy that house now in Diwali or Navratri or whatever it is. Why do they do it? So that customer doesn't think much. Customer takes faster decision. This is marketing. But that works in frauds as well. And we should avoid getting into that pressure. Correct? The another kind of social engineering is called farming. Farming means recreation of a website which looks genuine. For example, I open a site for net banking. It looks like exactly like State Bank of India. I go there, put my customer ID, put my password. But this site, which looks like State Bank of India, is not SBI website. It is a recreated site, and that is why it's called farming. Now, how does it really work? So this is a cover. Okay. In this cover, you have put in the customer ID and password captured. This site will reroute it to the genuine SBI site now. You may have seen at income tax site that when you go to income tax site, it reroute, but it tells you that you are being rerouted, right? These fake sites never tell you that you've been rerouted. It works on the back end. Customer never gets to know that they've been rerouted. So you go to that site, put ID, password, captured. They pushed you to the genuine site now. The genuine site will again ask for customer ID and password because this is the first time you're going to be interacting. You put it again. Most of us will think we may have put in a wrong password. We may have forgotten the password and so on. You go to the site, do the transaction, you get a message and everything looks very normal. Whatever transaction you did, you get the message. You think everything is fine. The fraud actually happened a couple of days later because the detail has already been captured. Few days, they will be quiet so that you don't get suspicious, but then the fraud can happen. So next time, if a site asks for password again and again, be careful. You rather report to bank. If you are very sure you have put in password correctly and the site is still asking again and again, it may not be a good sign. This is called farming. This is another very, very big cyber threat. So these are few examples how social engineering works. In most of these things, which is common is our interaction. Whether this interaction is physical, online, mail, phone, SMS, but people are interacting with us. And that is why frauds are happening. Now, social engineering is a big problem. If there is a big problem, there has to be a solution. Well, I cannot say and assure that you can be 100% secure because fraudsters are becoming too smart. And when we are in cyber mode, which we all are, it is very, very difficult, almost impossible to remove every kind of threat. However, we should try and protect ourselves as much as we can. So my few recommendations would be: one, do not download any XYZ app on your phone. For example, most of the time you may have seen kids playing games on your phone. Sometimes they take parents' phones, most of the time actually. The same phone where you have lot of confidential information, your banking detail, your wallets, your credit card information, which is mapped on a lot of sites, or your pictures, your messages, could be a lot of things. If you are using Android especially, you may have seen a lot of gaming app which says, can we access your contacts? Can we access your pictures? And we say yes. Have you ever thought why gaming app need access to your picture? What will they do with that? Have you ever logically thought about it? It's a game, you are playing game, what they have to do with your picture? And you know the threats attached to your picture? All I need is your face or your relatives or near one's face. And I can use wherever I want and I can blackmail you any day. Isn't it? Why? Why do you need to play that game? Now you may think that, if you don't say yes, you may not be able to play that game. The app doesn't install, so let it be. Don't play that game. It's fine. Nothing will happen. Play another game. But be secure. Educate this to your kids as well, which is very, very important these days because most of the time kids have phones in their hands and they don't know what to do, what not to do. Your wallets, cards, everything can be compromised in a fraction of a second. Even adults say access to the contacts and pictures allowed. So think it like a window in your house. You open the window to stranger and the stranger has entered in your phone. How will you stop that stranger not to go to another room? Stranger is already inside the house. So stranger has already entered in your phone. How will you not allow that stranger to see your wallets, your cards, your bank detail, your pictures, whatever is there in your phone? These days, spying apps are online. Somebody can sit in as far as China and Russia and Hong Kong and put a spying software in your phone. You sitting in Delhi, Mumbai, wherever you are. And they can real time watch you, real time hear you, real time see you what you're doing on your phone. And we are not talking about fantasy, guys. It's a very, very common thing. I'll give you another quick example. Maybe most of you will correlate. So let's say today you are discussing with your family or at dinner table. Let's buy a new car. So one family member says buy this car, and another has another option. You know, a lot of mind discussions are happening, but this discussion is happening at dining table. We are not searching anything on internet. Okay, just simply talking to each other. After dinner, you just go online and then you say, okay, chalo, let's see some model of car. And the moment you open the system, you see the exact same car ad. And we think, wow, even God wants us to buy that car. And that God is called internet, cyber. Have you ever thought that this discussion was not happening online? I mean, I know you know what is cookies, but cookies only comes to picture when you search. I am discussing at dinner table, not searching it. Then how Mr. Google God got to know that which car am I interested in? Think about it. Your smartphone, Alexa. Okay, just give me another example. So, well, I'm not trying to scare you guys out. I'm just telling you the practicality of today. Okay. Many of you must be using, okay, Google, Alexa, play that song, do this, do that. Smart TV, smart watch, smart devices. Very smart. Okay, just logically think. So you have told a voice command, play that song. They played it correctly. And after that, are they sitting like this? I'm not going to listen to you now. Well, I'm sitting in your drawing room. You have told me, okay, just get me that. I've given you a glass of water. And rest of the time, what am I doing? Like sitting like this? I'm still listening to your conversation, guys. Google may say 1,000 things. Then you should check the legal cases. What is going on? Why Google is in trouble for that? So again, the point here is that shall we stop using Google? Unfortunately, we may not be able. I may sound traditional, but then I personally don't use a lot of smart devices in home. It's personal choice. And the personal choice says that why should anybody get to know what we are doing? There's something called private space. The house is your private space. Well, I don't want Google to know what private space is having. So that's a personal choice. Whether you want to use it, whether you don't want to use it, it's your choice, but be very careful about it. And I would again sound traditional, but then if possible, keep your smart devices like your smartphone, your iPads or laptops away from at least some places in the house, like your bedrooms, like your personal spaces. Keep that little away. It's anyways a good healthy habit to be digital free for some time. It can result in a lot of troubles. So that's the vulnerability we come across. Whether we talk about our devices, we talk about our official places. Now, the piece of advice I can suggest here is that, as I said, one, do not download any app. Well, this is how I say that Google, Apple, these are monsters, but at least branded and known monsters. If they do anything wrong, they know there are a lot of other regulations comes into picture, but then any XYZ app what you download on your system, nobody knows who owns it. what they're going to do with your information. And there are no regulators for them. Google, Apple do not take any responsibility. So for example, you buy a share of a company, you get a loss, and so can you sue SEBI for it? That why did you list that company? They'll say, what do they say in their ad? Investment in the market is subject to the market risk. You should have known that market risk, no? Google, Apple never guarantee that apps are genuine. They says we have nothing to do with it. Read their privacy statements. It says you decide whether you want to do it or not. We are not responsible. Okay, so think about it, what you're downloading. And do not fall prey to free stuff. Free music, free, song, blah, blah, blah. Remember, there are no free lunches in the world. With every free comes with a cost. And that cost can be very problematic for you. So think many times before you download free stuff in your laptop or mobile next time. Think about which app you're downloading, where did it originate. It should be a big brand if possible, because they still have some ethics to follow, regulations to follow. But if you download anything just like that on your systems, it may not be safe. There will be a lot of information on your systems, your phone, which can get compromised. And the next advice could be that avoid giving a lot of information to the strangers, especially when that stranger is not able or is not willing to give information about himself or herself. More curious to know about you. What do you do? What kind of work do you do? What kind of information you deal with? Who else is there in your family? What time the family member goes out? Where are you going for holidays? These are the information you should filter. Whom are you talking to? Sometimes these fraudsters may use acquaintance also. So for example, let's say Vikas is my friend. Somebody will pose as a friend of Vikas. It's easier for me to trust. Okay, oh fine, yeah, I know Vikas. So are you friend of Vikas? Now, for me, this process is very short. That stranger doesn't need to be very, going through a long process. It's a very short process. So if it's as a case, I should talk with Vikas and check, how do you know this person? How much do you know this person? Or is this person is as good as a stranger for you? Who's just using your name? It happens quite a lot in profession. So for example, in our case, like when CAs talk, oh, do you know that CA? It's no big deal to know any CA's name. All I have to do is go to your LinkedIn profile or Insta or anything, see who all CAs are there in your friend list. Pick up any name out of it. Do some research on it and call them. Oh, Arun, give me your number. Or Vikas, give me your number. You know them, right? Yes, I know. But this conversation will happen faster. So just because somebody is talking about somebody else's name, you don't need to get, your cards open with a stranger. So this is how the cyber vulnerabilities can be reduced to some extent. But as I said in the beginning, that this is the area where there are a lot of things which are very risky. Take cautious step, take more preventive step as much as you can. So that is my very short take on this subject called cyber vulnerability, because as I said in the beginning, this topic is too detailed, and the more we talk about it, lesser it is. So that's how it is. So that's all I think from my side at this stage.
Thank you so much, ma'am. That was a very practical insight from your side. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
So can I start with the question and answers round? I would request all the faculties. Paul sir, are you there? So never mind. The first question is for Milind sir only, I guess. Whether an internal auditor need to be a programmer in the IA 4.0 environment?
Not really. Answer is very simple. Not really. You need not be a programmer. You should know how to use different tools or programs for your own purpose. So there is no need to be a programmer in any case. Someone else can do that job for you.
Okay, thank you, sir. The next question is whether an internal auditor can cope with the new age requirement of mastering the different processes of different industries.
That is the need of the hour. So if you have to survive in any case as the professional, you will have to get along with these things. Identical situation was there when we shifted from I 1.0 to 1.2, 1.2, 2.0, 1.0 to 2.0. When that time hardly any technology was available, and suddenly there were desktops and different kind of small things were available in the market. So finally our fraternity coped up with that, and we developed ourselves as internal auditors in the risk-based environment. In the similar fashion, we will have to evolve ourselves, develop ourselves so as to suit in the 4.0 environment. Otherwise, we will vanish.
Thank you, sir. Sir, any take from Paul, sir, on this question? I'll repeat the question. Whether an internal auditor can cope with the new age requirement of mastering the different processes of different industries.
Yeah, I would agree with what Mr. Melinda said. Of course, it's a continuous learning process. So any new technology will have its own problems. We have to live with them. We have to find the solutions for them. So that's something we'll have to live with them. In I remember 80s auditors struggling with spreadsheets, Lotus 1, 2, 3, whatever. So I mean, something which you have to accept. You can't. Otherwise, country can't go forward. As we said, that 1.0 to 4.0, there's a cost for development which you have to pay. And of course, the auditor is a trusted person. So obviously, it's like a doctor who's got to keep himself up to date. The auditor, same thing. Only thing is, so far, nobody's suing the auditors, but for negligence, but we have to be up to date.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Kapil ma'am, the next question is for you. I'll just reframe the question, referring to the one example you given for the advocate that got a call, WhatsApp video call. This is regarding that. Person is asking, what if the picture is clicked on video call? What difference does it make? The picture is anyways there on social media platforms.
Yes, but it's more like a live picture. So for example, yeah, so depends. Probably I could not get your social profile, but then this was easier for me. And secondly, for example, if I'm calling you early hours in the morning, you can be in any position, anyway, sitting at home. That sounds more realistic for me to project.
Thank you. Next question again. In case of
just to add to what ma'am has said, the problem today is the cameras on the phones and laptops, they are not a part of the standard protocol. That's an IoT. Whereas the microphone and the rest of it is this standard hardware which we use for the HTTP, that 443 or port 80. So the cameras can be switched on and off. Once they grab control, that fellow can actually monitor, use your camera at his will. So again, that's another problem. So ma'am has got a point that when you take video calls, you got to be careful. Phones, I mean, laptops also. This problem has come in the work from home. These software fellows, they leave the camera on and somebody has grabbed the camera. So when he's doing anything else, like proctoring, they monitor the camera separately and the rest of the computer separately.
And rightly mentioned by Paul sir. So what happens, guys, most of the time our cameras lights goes off when they become old, right? And then we don't even get to know if the camera is on. Just quick example. So like right now we are doing it on Zoom, right? And Zoom by default opens your video. And if you're not ready for it, then, or maybe you don't get to know that the camera is on, then the people can see wherever they are. So we have to be a little careful.
Okay, thank you. The next question is, in case of farming, as you mentioned, how one can be sure that the site opened is actually the genuine site?
Correct. So if it is a banking site or any site which asks for your credit card information or card information, few things you should make sure. One, that it should not be HTTP but rather HTTPS. Sometimes you may find a small lock turning up. All these are sign of encryption. Earlier, the URL used to convert into green color. These signs are sign of encryption that data is protected. And if these signs are coming, then that means it's a genuine site. If none of this is coming up, then this site is not genuine.
So can't the fraudsters use this technology for they can secure the website?
Yes, they
Be
can.
more smarter.
Yes, but for example, for banking, it's slightly tougher. For example, you can convert that into HTTPS with taking SSL certificates. However, a conversion of URL into green color and encryption is not easy. So not every fraudster will invest in that unless they are targeting something really big. Okay. Another thing which you can notice a bit more carefully is that if you have any reason to be suspicious, look at the logo and color scheme slightly more in detailed manner. If you see any slight variant, be careful. For example, a couple of months back, I saw one site which is exactly same as Canadian Embassy. Hardly any difference, but when you look closely, the logo of Canada was slightly different than actual Canada logo.
Thank you. Thank you. The next question is, which software apart from Excel is must to learn in internal audit field? Milind sir.
Actually, they have a desktop version which is free called Power BI. It's also from Microsoft. Only the desktop is free. Cloud and the rest of it you have to pay, but you really don't have to pay. You can use the desktop version. Power BI is a data analytics, it's a visualization tool, but at the CA level, it can be used for audit analytics. The other tool is called KNIME, K-N-I-M-E. That's a little better tool because then you can start mapping flows with your data analytics. And if somebody is doing a lot of statistical work, there instead of that SPSS, which is now bought by IBM, it's expensive. There is a PSPP. I mean, the letters are just reversed. It's an open source software. For the rest of the audit tools, if they are doing that system audits and those kind of things, they need to work with open source. It's actually called Kali Linux, K-A-L-I-N-L-I-N-U-X. It's a whole lot of tools. There are 1,000+ tools. They need to pick what they want. Usually they use things like Wireshark, Nmap. Those are the commonly used tools. But they can learn the others also. It is open source means you'll get YouTube video, you'll get a lot of documentation. And then depending on the customer, you can, if a paid tool is required, you can go in for one. But to learn open source is perfectly fine.
Thank you. Thank you, Paul sir. Anything Kamal ma'am or Milind sir wants to add in this question?
So
Paul sir has addressed it properly. Few just to add a few, I have seen few people using Python, though I have personally not used it. Maybe Mr. Paul can add a few words about Python as well.
The problem with Python, sir, you have to learn programming.
Okay.
I'm generally, to be very frank, auditors somehow they are not tuned to math, stats, or any kind of. They always think it's they have allergy towards it. So I encourage them to use the tools which give the results, and then they have to learn to interpret the results. Otherwise, the audit committee will drive you mad. It's so you have to interpret the results.
Yeah.
So my take wouldn't be much on the software because all I can recommend is that audit is moving towards more about data analytics. So any software which is hardcore into data analytics can always support audits better. And especially when we are moving toward risk-based audits and in-depth audits, data analytics would definitely help. And there are, again, a lot of softwares available for data analytics. It entirely depends on the industry you work with, the work you do, the kind of thing you have to handle. You can take a choice accordingly. So the list is very long for data analytics software as well. But from my side, I would highly recommend each one of you who is into audit profession to learn data analytics and learn it faster.
So, ma'am, do you really think that there is any issue with the open source softwares? Any security issues or something?
It may arise. So depends. For example, let's say IDEA. So IDEA has some of features available which is freely. Beyond that, you have to take a license. So we can trust on those kind of softwares. However, if you open, just go Google and search any free software for this and that and install it. You never know, it may come with spine softwares which you can quietly install in your system and watching you. So for example, you go to any website which says free movie. And the moment you click on that link, it says your flash is outdated or you have a virus in the system. Just correct it first. What you have to understand is that your system has auto updates. How come flash is outdated? And even if it is outdated, why that site is worried about it? Why are they thinking about it? So the moment you click on that, a software can quietly come. It could be Trojan, it could be virus, it could be spying software. It will come and sit quietly in your system. And then you can download your free movie, enjoy your free movie, and the other person is also enjoying another movie of everything on your system. That's it. That's the problem which we carry.
What do you think about the unlicensed software, or we use a copy of software? Mostly in the industry, it is a practice that they do not buy Microsoft licenses, MS Word, PowerPoint, or anything.
Well, I would strongly not suggest. I know it costs, so I'm being very practical. I understand that original licenses are expensive. Maybe talk to the local partners, get some discount out of it, because one, that you may not be able to enjoy all the benefit with the pirated one. Secondly, you never know how far it is genuine. The pirated version can, adversely impact a lot of things. So in order to save 5,000, 6,000 rupees, you may end up losing quite a lot.
Yeah, it is.
Just to add to that,
Very lucrative.
open source, you'll have to take, there are three things: free, share, and open source. Freeware, shareware, and open source. Freeware is what ma'am was telling. Open source, you got to be a little technical. It's there, sourceforge.net or GitHub, where they're all, they verify the code. Even the source code is available. Only headache is downloading it, compiling it, the binaries, particularly, most of the good tools will be Linux based. So open source is safe, but not so with the freeware. That's the problem ma'am was telling. So whoever is searching for it should be a little knowledgeable. It's like buying a local author's auditing standard and getting the institute's guideline. They're two different things. The other part ma'am was telling on the pirated software, one of the issues now is almost all the software go to the internet to check with the, ma'am said, updates. So pirated software is getting caught. In fact, in Oracle, SAP, Microsoft, whatever, including these local Windows. Today they have what is called an OEM version. You can't buy it. It doesn't come on a CD or whatever. When you buy a laptop or desktop, you can buy it along with it. Then the additional cost is very low. It's maybe 1,000, 1,500. But if you're buying an OEM, and like ma'am said, if you get out of the dealer, he can sell the OEM to you, but you'll have to only download the software. No CD is given. And then you have to install it with a key. In fact, most of the software we use in the office is all the OEMs, which a lot of people in India sell legally. Only headache is by the time you download, install, it's a backbreaking job. It's not like that, easy, put it inside, straight away one blue bar will go, it will say finished, click here to finish or something. It is not that simple. But once you do it, in fact, the entire MS Office comes to you at less than 2,000. That's got everything there, including publisher, OneNote, the works. But installing is, you need to get some help. So most of the time, these dealers, the software is cheap, 1,000, 1,500. They'll rip you off on the installation cost. He'll ask for 2,000 or whatever it is.
So anybody from Delhi area would be aware of the Nehru place is pretty known for this.
But get the legal ones there.
Yes.
No, they're cheap actually. The OEMs are very cheap.
Yes.
In fact, at times, bigger companies or even the smaller companies, they are reluctant to share the data with you if your system is not, or your laptops, you are not carrying the authorized versions of any of the softwares. because they are afraid that even if you are churning data, their data on your laptop, the pirated versions might take away some information of their company along with. So a lot of companies, they insist that you have to have license copies with you.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you. Next question. What is the scope for application for blockchain in the going on bank's stat audit?
Role of blockchain in?
I'll repeat the question. What is the scope for application of blockchain in the ongoing bank stat audit?
Bank statutory audit.
Actually, the thing is, blockchain is not something it's not like a luxury or an add-on. Why they use blockchain is because once you get into this EDI, I mean, we had all this before, SWIFT, EDI, and so on. Even customs is online now. They have PCS, port communication system, where ports send their data out. And now we have the banks also. It's called ADF, automated data flow. So wherever these data sharing happens between, I wouldn't say unknown entities, but a regulator and a business entity, or like NPCI, they monitor a lot of other switches like credit card, IMPS, UPI, all the 10 cashless systems they monitor. Of course, GPI alone moves out of that, doesn't move through it. So all these people, they need to have tons of data moving, but at the same time, they want integrity of the recording to be assured. They want some assurance. So the thing is, the government we got both the state government, IT issuing some guidelines we have for the Tamil Nadu, and it's there for Maharashtra. They also have the All India, that is the central government's guidelines. Now there are many issues here. One, lack of support. To be very frank, maybe it's the wrong forum, but most of our regulators, the senior people, are old people. They're above 50, so they're not interested in learning. So they say that the youngsters take care of it and they leave it off. So you have to wait till they retire. So that's one problem. The second problem we are having is auditors. Again, teaching an auditor, I mean, suppose this lecture was based on running a tool, we won't have even 1/4 of our participants. So they want to listen, but nobody wants to really go hands-on. Again, it's the younger people we have to target. And the third is the cost. Still, computers are not cheap like China or Europe. We still have to pay a fairly hefty price for our machines. And then will others share their computing power with us? Like some people do, like IIT Madras or police computers, they do. But that is only for authorized universities and colleges and so on. As a private auditor, nobody will share anything with us. So maybe if, it's only a while thinking, if the institute took a lot of space on AWS or Google, and members paid as part of their registration membership fee, and you got some rights to use those for your audit purposes or run your blockchains, you can probably implement it for your smaller clients. But then somebody has to build the cat. The major problem in India is cost. And second is, of course, knowledge to use it.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. So next question is on ma'am. Is it a good practice to put manual patch on webcam when not in use?
That's okay. I mean, that's physical control. Okay,
Yes,
fine.
physical control as far as you can do, and there is no harm. So yes, it's a good idea.
Thank you. So the last question I'm getting is, are the trial version and free applications such as AnyDesk and TeamViewer to have the remote access, are there any threats to the data integrity?
I think Professor has already answered that before.
Yeah, in TeamViewer, you'll have to open the port through the firewall. So that's why we tell them to use AnyDesk or VNC, but the logs are pretty heavy there. They generate fat logs. So if they're sharing data, best is to go for remote desktop or VDI, virtual desktop interface. There are a lot of options available. So the only problem is use a software which doesn't make you open ports in the firewall. Now, TeamViewer is used more in trusted sites. You can't use them for remote support. I mean, it's not safe. But then the other side is generally there's nothing much except organization machines. There's nothing much on common laptops which students or apprentices use. Nothing much so, because the company doesn't give them the data unless they put that machine in their domain. They don't share the data. So for safety, it's institute members we'll have to do a little bit of research. It's like using face powder, like ma'am said, or sir also said, stay with the better brands, the better manufacturers. The bad ones will always give you a shortcut somewhere.
Thank you.
Maybe you can compile a list of those vulnerable software later. Easy to use are always a nuisance, actually.
Thank you, sir. Thank you all the faculties of today for sharing their deep knowledge into the topic. So for the concluding remarks and vote of thanks, I would like to call upon CA Gyan Chandra Mishra ji, Central Council member, Internal Audit Standard Board Vice Chairman, if he is with us. Somebody from the technical team, can you please connect us with?
Vikas ji, I think he will not be joining, Vice Chairman sir. So
Okay.
you may please proceed. Yeah.
Okay. So we shall conclude this very wonderful session presented by Milind sir, Paul sir, and Kamaljeet ma'am for today. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir, Milind sir, Paul sir, for coming. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
It was a really we learned a lot actually today from the others. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you.